And welcome back to the Hot Lap. We are talking Alex Albon versus Pierre Gasly versus Sergio Perez. So, hear me out, with the news that Sergio Perez is pretty much going to continue at Red Bull after the summer break for 2024. I guess to give him the best chance for that 2025 seat, but there's still a fair few doubts over him. And as we already saw, in comparison to Daniel Ricciardo 2024, I'm not talking Daniel Ricciardo 2014 because that was amazing. But is Daniel really the best candidate to replace Sergio Perez? As you know, the Australian, I think even the most devout Daniel Ricciardo fan would say he's not been convincing enough to guarantee him a place at Red Bull. And the data kind of says that as well, especially when you compare him, for example, to Yuki Tsunoda. But let's have a look. Thanks to this article from planetf1.com, which gave me the idea, so I'm just kind of taking it from them. Sorry. But planetf1.com, the article is linked in the description. And they're measuring Sergio Perez against the drivers of Red Bull past. So we've known in recent years Red Bull to be quite savage with their drivers. See you later. You are not good enough, Nick de Vries. You are not good enough, Brendan Hartley. You are not good enough, Daniel Kvyat, Alex Albon, Pierre Gasly, etc. But after the dominant season in 22 and 23, Perez has sort of fulfilled his mission as number 2 driver. They've won the Constructors. They have finished 1-2 in the championship last year, albeit with... it wasn't easy, let's say, for Perez, but he did it, so fair play to him. But how does the Mexican master compare to Verstappen's other Red Bull teammates who, let's be fair, were sacked? Drivers, for example, like Alex Albon and Pierre Gasly. Did they? I mean, we're asking, did they deserve to be demoted? So, the first of those acts, alongside Mr. Verstappen, was none other than Pierre Gasly, and that was during the 2019 season. He'd come in to replace Daniel Ricciardo, so let's be fair, really hard shoes to fill. Ricciardo had declined the chance to renew, and he decided to go to Renault, potentially seeing that the team favoured Max Verstappen and where it was going, and he didn't want to be another Mark Webber / Sebastian Vettel situation. But anyway, Gasly, he was promoted from Toro Rosso, and he only lasted half a season against Verstappen at Red Bull. Half a season. So in 2019, Red Bull very much had the third best car on the grid behind Mercedes and Ferrari. Still, it was a car capable of those one-off victories and podiums, or at least in the hands of Max Verstappen. Now, Verstappen scored a pole position and 5 podiums, including 2 wins in the 12 races, of which the 2 shared a garage. Now, for his part, Gasly, he did, to be fair to him, get a 4th position, and that was his best result, and that was 4th in the 2019 British Grand Prix. And it was the only time funny enough, he finished ahead of Verstappen, who collided with Sebastian Vettel during that race at Silverstone. So in 12 races, Gasly's average qualifying position was, drumroll, 8.92. His average race position was 7.72. Okay. But, and we have to have this caveat, Gasly did not have as good a car as, for example, Max Verstappen does now. But Gasly scored 63 points in his 12 races with Red Bull. In the same 12 races, Max scored quite the epic 181 points. In other words, Gasly only contributed 25.82% of Red Bull's points, while Verstappen, a whopping 74.18%. Here are the stats here, as I'm going to, which Planet F1 have very, very handily done. So bear with me 2 seconds. But that's quite compelling stats, isn't it? That's like shocking. I mean, I didn't think it was that bad, to be fair. I thought it was going to, initially when I read it, I thought it was going to be, let's just say, a lot closer. And as you can see here are the stats between Max Verstappen and Pierre Gasly. Podiums 5, none for Gasly. Wins 2, none for Gasly. Average qualifying 3.92, 8.92 for Pierre Gasly. And then we've got the average race result, 3.33 and 7.72, respectively, for Max Verstappen and Pierre Gasly. 181 points for Max and 63 for Gasly. So 74.18% of the points then for Max Verstappen, 25.82% of the points for Pierre Gasly. Weird. So let's go on to Alex Albon. He's the current Williams driver, doing a very good job there. And he was Gasly's replacement for the remainder of the 2019 season alongside Verstappen as Red Bull. really wanted to get Ferrari for that P2 position in the championship. Now, in the remaining 9 races of 2019, Alex Albon managed a P5 as best qualifying result and a P4 as the best race result. However, in the Brazilian Grand Prix, to be fair, he did suffer a touch from Lewis Hamilton with 2 laps to go, preventing him from what would have been finishing P2 after starting in P5. And I think, ironically, it was Gasly that ended up getting that the podium. But in those 9 races, Alex Albon's average qualifying position was 8.66 in the race. His average grid position was 6.22. So better records than Gasly, and allowed him to keep the seat for the following season. Now, in 2020, the opening race, the race where some people say ruined Alex Albon's career, I think that's kind of hyperbole, but maybe it would have given him the confidence, because what happened in the hunt for both Mercedes cars for victory and his first podium, he again made contact with Lewis Hamilton, ruining his chances. He may well have won the race because he was on a much faster new set of tyres at the time. Now, on both occasions, the Mercedes driver was found to be predominantly to blame for these incidents, although I think the Austria one may be less so. Brazil one absolutely banged to rights. But Albon scored just 2 podiums that season, several P4s as his best qualifying result. Now, this clearly helped Red Bull get second place finally in the Constructors' Championship as the strongest car on the grid. His average qualifying 2020 was a 7.35, while his average race position was 7.75. Now, the Thailand driver, the driver from Thailand, he did take what was a clear step back, though, in race performance. Although the end of season stats improved a bit, his average position being 5 in the last 4 races that he completed with Red Bull. And here we have the stats here as shared by planetf1.com. As you can see, the fight between Verstappen and Ocon. We've got Max Verstappen, podiums 4. Into 2019, Alex Albon 0 podiums and 0 wins, compared to Max's 4 podiums and 1 win. Qualifying average 5.77, 8 points for Max, 8.66 for Alex Albon. Average race result 3.86 for Max, 8.66 for Albon. Points were a bit closer, 97 to 76, so 56.07 to 43.93, not bad. It did open up a bit, though, in 2020. We had 11 podiums to Alex Albon's 2 for Max Verstappen. 2 wins to Albon's, obviously 0 wins, as we mentioned. Average quality result was 3.05 for Max, 7.35 for Alex Albon. And you could probably make an argument that the Red Bull was a better car in 2020 than 2019. But anyway, average race result 2.42 for Max and 7.75 for Alex Albon. So Max improved his average race. Alex Albon didn't. Well, he regressed. So points 214 to 105. So that's 67.08 to 32.92. So obviously Max getting the more points there. And Albon finished the season P7 in the Drivers' Championship, scoring 32.92% of the team's points, while Verstappen finished P3, scoring that 67.08% of those team points. Now, drumroll, here's the interesting one. Let's talk about Sergio Perez. He joined the team in 2021 to replace Albon alongside Verstappen after a great season with what was a quite unexpected victory with a little bit of help, but don't take that too much away from him because he was last at the first lap after the first lap, and that was in 2020 in Sakir, the outer circuit. Now, it took the Mexican driver 5 races to get going, but he scored his first win with the team at the Azerbaijan GP, as it was red flagged after, I think, Max Verstappen's whoops-a-daisy a tyre failure, and with a little bit of help of Lewis Hamilton forgetting how to brake for the first corner. Yes, I know he had the wrong braking system on, but there we go. Amateur hour, potentially. But Perez was key in Verstappen's first World Championship, being the Dutch driver's best wingman in the last race in Abu Dhabi, holding off Hamilton to allow his teammate to chase him down. That was also a case of holding off Hamilton in Turkey that same year, which was really good. But I think there were the 2 main features of that championship battle, as well as that win in Azerbaijan. But in addition, Perez did score 3 more podium finishes in a row in the middle of 2021. Now, in 2022, with the introduction of those new technical regulations, Red Bull clearly became the most dominant team on the grid. In 2021, they were either the first or second team, however you believe, car. In 2022, they were the best. Now, thanks to this and a good adaptation, Perez did score 2 more victories, one of them at the prestigious Monaco Grand Prix, and then he scored one at the Singapore Grand Prix, getting the title of a street fighter at the circuit, a street specialist, if you will. Now, to these victories, another 9 podiums were added, which did end up helping the Mexican driver finish the season in 3rd place in the Drivers' Championship. However, in what was a controversial Brazilian Grand Prix call, Verstappen refused to give up his position, so Perez so he could only finish ahead of Charles Leclerc. So he could finish ahead of Charles Leclerc in the final standings. He was like, no. What happened at Monaco? Perez, prior to this, had given up position to Max so he could attack. But in 2023, Red Bull were still dominant, though. Perez took 2 early season wins to the point where people were talking about him maybe winning or challenging at least for the title. But that faded with a few races later. In addition to those 2 victories, he did score 7 podiums. And with these records, Red Bull secured its 2nd consecutive Constructors' Championship and won 2. But now in 2024, Red Bull no longer had the dominant car. And we'll get to that in a second. But let's have a look at Perez's performances over 2021, 2022 and 2023. 18 podiums to Max Verstappen's 5 in 2021, 10 wins to 1. Just shy of 3%, 2.86 was Max Verstappen's average qualifying, 7.04 was Sergio Perez's. The average race result was 2.65 for Max Verstappen, with a 6.6 from Sergio Perez. Points, 395.5. For Max Verstappen. I think that 0.5 coming from Belgium, and 190 points coming from Sergio Perez. That's basically a split of about 67.55, which you can see, and 32.45. So once again, a fairly big gap, just like Gasly and Albon. Now, for the 2022, 17 podiums to 11 for Sergio Perez. It was the dominant car that year. 15 wins to Sergio Perez's 2. 3.41 was the average result to 4.81. Now, that was the average quali result. Now, the average race result, though, was 2.81 for Max to 3.95 for Sergio Perez. Points, 454 for Max to 305 for Perez. Split of 59.82 to 40. That was fairly close. But then, and so was the average race result. But it all starts to go a bit awry, I think, for Perez in 2023. So 21 podiums to Max's 9. Okay, not too, it was, though, to be fair, the most dominant year for Red Bull. So is that good enough? He got less podiums in 2022. Scratching our heads there. 19 wins to Perez's 2. Fair enough then. Okay, he equalled the amount of wins he got the year before, did Perez. 2.45 was Max Verstappen's average qualifying, which is even better than 2022. But Perez, 9.27. I mean, is that the biggest gap between all 3 people we're talking about, as in Perez, Alexander Albon and Pierre Gasly? An average qualifying of 1.27 was Max to Perez's 4.5. The points were split basically almost like 66.86 and 33.14. So Max scoring 575. Whoa. To Perez's 285. Not particularly good reading. But now in 2024, with Red Bull no longer the dominant car, kind of like 2021 was close, but now we have potentially 3, or maybe even 3 teams, maybe even 4. We've got Ferrari potentially, not at the moment. We've got Mercedes, McLaren, and Red Bull fighting for wins this year. Ferrari need a bit of a hurry up though, but to be fair, they were at one point in Australia and definitely at Monaco. Now, at the start of the season, the RB20, though, it was still the benchmark on the grid, and that really helped Sergio Perez get those few podiums at the beginning. But since the introduction of McLaren's upgrades in Miami, and we had this resurgence of Mercedes, Perez has not been able to finish, remember, since Miami, higher than P7 in the races. And right now, Red Bull is leading the constructors, but they are in a spot of bother because Sergio Perez simply is not scoring the points. And here we have quite a discrepancy here. If we share the screen, as you can see here, we've got Sergio Perez versus Max Verstappen comparison. So 9 podiums for Max, 4 for Sergio Perez. Not too bad, but 7 wins for Max, none for Perez. Okay, but then here comes the kickers. We've got average quality result 1.86 for Max and 8.71 for Perez. The average race result is 2.38 to 6, which isn't particularly great. Points 277 to 131. That's quite a big gap for just over halfway through the season. Team points 67.89 and 32.11. Once again, does not make particularly good reading. The asterisk is there for retirements or DSQs are not not included. So fair enough. Does not make for good reading though, does it? It doesn't make for good reading whatsoever. But if we put together all the numbers and the stats of Verstappen's last 3 teammates, we get the following table. And this is potentially the most interesting. So Max, we've already looked at Max Verstappen versus Pierre Gasly. They've got an average, though, of 3.92 to 8.92. And then we have average result, 3.33 to 7.72. Between the two of them, as you can see there, 181. So 74 points compared to 25. Okay, so Pierre Gasly is clearly, when you look at the stats, you can make his argument the worst of those drivers. Fair enough. So let's look at between Max and Alexander Albon, shall we? They are arguably, they are quite good compared to Sergio Perez. It is very, very close. 15-2 for the podium, 3-0 for the wins. But then qualifying, average of 4. Remember, Max didn't have the best car. Alex Albon average of 7.81. Not particularly great, but better, I think, better than Gasly, and potentially better than Sergio Perez. Average race result, 2.95 to 7.2. Points, 311 to 181. Once again, better than Gasly there, but not maybe as good as Sergio Perez, but didn't have the best car, did they then? 311 points to 181, that's 63.21% for Max, 36.79% for Alexander Albon. Again, they didn't have the best car, but the points maybe don't count as much as the average qualifying position, etc. But with Max Verstappen, 65 podiums to 29, 50 wins to 5, 3.05 the average quality result to 7.33. Max obviously been almost 1 place better. Sergio Perez has been a bit better than Alexander Albon, but massive difference with how good the car is. Let's be fair, massive differences. Average race result 2.25 to 5.18. Points 1,701.5 to 911.0. Team points, Max Verstappen 65.13. So, not as good as he was against Alexander Albon, a 34.87 for Perez. Not as good as when when Albon was in the car. So that's quite interesting. It makes for interesting reading, doesn't it? So when we see about it, Perez has the best average qualifying position and average race position data. This is mostly due to the fact of that dominant car, as we said. But Perez has also been a key part of the Red Bull team until this past season. This season, not doing very well at all. However, no other driver has done enough to dislodge him. That's what Planet F1 are saying. I think you could, though, make a good case that Red Bull are just being stubborn. But it seems that the gap between Gasly and Verstappen was too wide. He's the worst of them all. However, Albon's numbers are very similar to those of Perez's. And this season, both have been going, Pierre Gasly and Alexander Albon have been going from strength to strength. So in a less dominant car that Perez has at his disposal, it's perhaps Albon's stint at Red Bull that Planet F1, and we conclude, was better. So going purely by that data, with the fact that Alexander Albon did not have the best car, Alexander Albon arguably is a better or a closer teammate in terms of speed than Sergio Perez is in Planet F1's, and obviously my opinion. And I think now, if you put the two together, I do think Alex Albon would have the better of Sergio Perez. It'll be closer than you think. But yeah. But then again, going up against Max as anyone's teammate, it's going to be a bit difficult, isn't it? It's not great. Anyway, if you like what you see, hit that subscribe button. If you want to see more Formula One news, please watch away, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification button so you don't miss a video. We do F1 Rally, a little bit of gaming. We'll speak to you soon. Thank you very much.